You're listening to Get Out and Drive podcast with John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer, and Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill. We'll be bringing you gearheads all the information you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
I am Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill.
And I am John, Custom Car Nerd Meyer.
Today we're going to be talking to Dustin Williams about his 68 F100. Good morning, Dustin.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Give us a little history on this 68 F100 that you have.
Okay, sure. Like I said, it's a 68 F100. It was actually purchased in 1971 by my parents. They used my mom's first car, which is a 63 Falcon, to trade in for the down payment. My dad needed a truck to work construction with. He traveled all over the Southeast, hauling construction materials with it, scaffolding. He did a lot of installations in major chain restaurants and drop ceilings in the beginning. And then he later got a job with General Motors. But the truck came to be, he used it, like I said, for years for that. It then kind of sort of retired, if you will, for a truck. It was used a few months out of the year for hunting, hauling firewood, just your everyday truck, hauling stuff back and forth. And then he decided he wanted to redo it. I think his late 80s. So he had it repainted. Of course, went back with the West Coast mirrors and the bullet hole wheels and gun rack, all that, the stuff that was cool then. He drove it for a couple years after that, and then ended up parking it as well. After that, you know, it was always a truck that I looked up to as a truck that I thought that truck could pull the world. That was just the coolest thing I've ever seen. Even though it was a Ford truck, you know, Fords weren't that popular back in the day. Even up until recently, it was always the Chevrolet trucks and stuff like that. But growing up, I have memories of riding along in the truck, working on the truck, actually learning to drive using that truck. I got to sit in, you know, my parents' lap, figuring out how to do the whole 3 on the tree. Driving the huge bus steering wheel that was on that thing because it didn't have. I had always loved that truck, and as time went on, the truck sat. When I turned 14, my dad and mom gave it to me and said, "Here's your truck." That truck was it needed some work, to put it nicely. It had sit up for years. Still had mud grip tires, even though it was a 2-wheel drive. Had mud grip tires all the way around. Had the white 15-inch steel wheels on it. The bed floor looked like you had just beat it with a baseball bat.
Wow.
You know, he bought it as a truck. It was used as a truck, and
Right.
there was nothing left of the bed. That truck served its purpose very well for many years. And so when I turned 14, me, my dad, my 2 brothers, we started stripping it down. We started working on that thing to bring it, you know, to where I could drive it. We did a few cool things to it back then that was really new for the F100s. We cut the whole front frame off of it. We got to know a guy locally, Mike Chesser, who was known for building the 53 to 56 F100s all across the Southeast. We went and talked to him and asked him, you know, just what could we do to get away from that twin I-beam that the Fords came with. And he told us what he does. He puts the 2nd generation Camaro clips under the 53 F100s and kind of coached us on how to do that ourselves. And we did that in the garage at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a lot of fancy frame jigs or anything like that. We had a concrete floor. We stripped the cab and bed off, took everything off the frame, stripped it down, and decided one day we're going to start cutting. And we cut it off. Took the advice of Mr. Chesser and got it all lined up, welded the 2nd generation Camaro clip back up under it. And so it had disc brakes. It lowered it down really, really well. And then that was kind of all we did to it. We didn't paint it at that time. It was originally red, and my dad had it repainted red in the late 80s. By the time I had got it at 14, it was almost orange. But to me, it was still red. A lot of people Like, man, you drive an orange pickup truck. Like, no, it's red. You just got to get in the right light.
Yeah.
But so we got it all put back together. You know, one of the things that this truck kind of gets a little bit of heat for is it's Chevrolet powered. And that, you know, my dad worked at General Motors for 25 plus years, and we had always owned General Motors products, mainly Chevrolets.
Okay.
And of all the tinkering we had done throughout the years on building cars and trucks for my older brothers, my dad would get people at General Motors plant to ask him to do an engine swap for them on the side, and he would do that. And it's always Chevrolets too. So we had kind of accumulated a number of small block Chevrolet blocks just laying around. You know, even back then, and you guys know it, in the hot rodding industry kind of knows it too, small block Chevrolet engines were the thing. No matter what you were building, if you had a small block 350, that's just what you did. They were reliable. They're, you know, I don't say they're cheap, but they were cheaper to build.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we decided to go with that, and we had a small block 350 built by a local engine builder, and we dropped it in there. That thing would scream, and it sounded good. You know, from that day forward, we've kind of gotten some heat from it. Even back then, at 16 years old, you'd have some older people come up like, "Oh man, I can't believe you put a Chevrolet motor in that truck. You ruined it." And to me, I didn't care, and we could have put a Mazda motor in it. I didn't care. The time that I got to spend under the hood of that truck with my two brothers and my dad, that's what it was about to me. It was fun.
Right.
And even today, you know, I catch some heat for it, but I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. Yeah, that's what makes that truck to me. The amount of time we got to spend with it. So fast forward a little bit, I drove it all through school, and then of course, you know, I got busy with life. Went off to college, moved back, got a job, and parked the truck. The truck just wasn't useful for me for what I was doing. Parked it at my parents' house and just kind of let it sit outside. It again started to rust away. I bet it, you know, when I parked it, it probably stayed parked for 8 years. Never moved. So it just kind of sat there. I had bought and sold a lot of other cars and trucks once that was parked. You know, so to me, there were some nice cars. I went out and bought a new Camaro, a new Vet, and new pickup trucks, but they're nice. They're fun to drive, but it still never, whatever I bought and sold and drove, never struck a chord to me like driving the 68 Ford pickup.
Right.
That red truck, no matter, you know, you get behind the wheel of that thing, or I get behind the wheel of it, even back when I first started driving it, and just the memories that come back to driving it. That's what's fun to me, and I always miss driving it, but I just never thought I had the time to start redoing it. And you know, with it sitting at my parents' house, my parents obviously saw it every day, you know, and I'd talk to them and go by there and see them and all that. And occasionally they would ask questions, you know, what are you going to do with that old truck? I was like, I'll get to it one day. Just kept putting it off. And finally, you know, it came down to the point where my wife and I was talking about it. It's like, you know, we should do something with that truck. If we don't, it's going to be too late, and it's not going to be worth even touching. So her and I started talking about some ideas and getting it going. And I mentioned it to my dad, and you could just see the light bulb go off. That really, you know, piqued his interest and wanted to know, when are you going to do it? So I knew I probably shouldn't have mentioned it to him, because then it was almost every day, well, when are you getting started? When are you going to do it? What are we doing? And I kind of kicked that can on down the road, and he ended up getting diagnosed with a pulmonary fibrosis, and which is a pretty big lung disease. It's not really not a lot of options for it. And so once he was diagnosed with that, my wife and I really started talking and said, hey, you know what? I think he would really like to see this truck be completed. So that's when we really went full speed ahead. We started stripping it down. My dad started helping me in the beginning, so we took it off. all the way back down the frame. When we sandblasted the entire thing,
Wow.
we laid out some ideas and designs for what we wanted to do with it. And then as that time went on, he became more sick with a disease, and it advanced rather quickly. And he got to where he couldn't help me on it as much. So I contacted a really good friend of mine here locally that builds cars and trucks. And he had helped us in the past on some other trucks that we had built. And I told him, I said, you know, the idea was for me, my dad, my two brothers to do this truck. But we're having to relocate my parents up to Durham, North Carolina, which is Duke University and Duke Hospital. They had accepted him into a lung transplant program. So we knew that he wasn't going to be here to help. And we knew that chances were if we didn't get someone else to help us, we wouldn't have it completed, you know, for him to enjoy it.
Right.
So we relocated them up to Durham to live for a few years. My brothers and I spent a lot of time on the road back and forth, so we knew we couldn't do it either. I talked to Brad Shadley, who runs Hot Rod Syndicate here in Beaufort, Georgia, and I told him, I said, you know, I really wanted to do this one myself, do it full scale, but I don't have time, and I've kind of got a deadline that I want it done by, but there's no one else here that I'd rather build this truck for, just because of the relationship him and my brothers have had over the years because they were the same age. I said, Brad, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved throughout the build, and I want to do the things that we can do that we have time for. But I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow or next week, or I'm going to be on the road. So this is what we want to do. So we packed up all the pieces and what we had started on, took it to Brad's shop, and let him carry on the build for us. I can't say enough good things about the work he'd done on it. He took my vision and really saw it through. As my dad was up at Duke, we would be able to talk over the phone, and I'd go up there and see him, and my brother would go see him, and we'd show him pictures of the truck and how it's coming along. And I would always ask him, you know, what would you do? What would you like to see? How would you do it? And he would talk, and I would listen, and I would pass that information along. One of the best memories that I have in discussing this truck is the actual color itself. My dad, as far as I can remember the truck being in the family, he always talked about how red it was. It was just, to him, that was the prettiest red you could have on an automobile. And so my wife and I, we drove around to every car dealership for miles around, every make, every manufacturer, to look at the reds. And there's a lot of nice, real pretty cars out there, a lot of pretty red cars, but there's just not a red that struck us to say, this is the red it should be. And I would send pictures of the red to my dad. And he's like, that's pretty. But I could tell that wasn't the color. So we kept going. Finally, I said, you know, he had always talked about candy apple red. So I got to looking and researching, and that truly was a color in '68. With Ford color was just candy apple red.
Yep.
It's not candy apple.
Code R.
That's it. And it's not the people hear candy apple today, and it's got some metallic or pearlescent or what have you in it. But back then, it was a straight single stage red.
Yep.
So I said, we're gonna go candy apple red. Whether it turns out orange or it turns out purple, I don't care. Candy apple red, that's right. I'm done looking. If he liked it that much back in '68, if they got the same mix, that's what we're gonna do. So we did. And then, we figured that out, and it came to time to discuss the motor for it, the engine. The initial plan that my wife and I discussed, and I discussed with my brothers and everybody around, I said, I'm going back true. I'm going back all Ford. We're going to get rid of the Chevrolet small block. We'll put that in something else. But we're going to go back all Ford. And I had a Ford motor ready, sitting there in the garage floor to put in. That's about the time my dad ended up really, really sick. He ended up in ICU for over 70 days due to some complications he had. And at that time, almost, it was almost like an honor or tribute to him. I said, let's not do the Ford thing. Let's keep it the way it was, the way he wanted to do it back the first time we redone it. Let's put the Chevrolet powder truck. Let's put the motor. I didn't, once that idea came up, I just went with it. I didn't really second guess myself because, number one, to me, that's what hot rodding is all about. You build things, whether it be for yourself or for somebody else. You build things for the memories and to honor what you're building for. And I said, let's get a Chevrolet motor. But I don't want a small block. I want something that I can get in and drive from here to wherever I want to go. And talking to some people, we came up with the LS idea. So we had a 6.0 LS built. Had it built by Sam Daffron, but my only thing was, a lot of times you see an LS motor and you raise the hood and it's an LS. You see packs, you see everything. I'll say they're not the prettiest motors in their stock.
No, they're not.
They're not.
Nope.
But in my opinion, they're reliable. You can get in, you can drive those things as far as you want to drive them.
Yeah.
But that was one of my things was, I want this motor. I want people to scratch their heads. When you raise the hood, I want people to say, at least take a second, like, what in the world is that? So we, and that was kind of, back when we had a small block in it, the guy that built the engine for us, he actually made some custom valve covers that bolted on the small block, and it had Ford and, scripted on the valve covers.
Right.
And, it wasn't enough to hide it because you had the huge distributor missing from the front of the motor on that small block. It was on the back. But so that, that was kind of cool to me. And when we did the LS, that was one thing I said, I want it to look like an old school motor. I don't want to see the coil packs. I don't want to see the air intake tube and all that. So we decided to put an intake on it, hide the carburetor pretty good, hide all the coil packs back on the frame rails. So when you raise the hood on the truck, it looks like almost like an old school engine. You don't see a lot of the wires. I wanted it clean. And that's what we did with it. And in my opinion, that's what hot rodding is. You take what you have or why you do things, and that's what you use. That's what we did back in the day when we first built it. That's what we had laying around. And in our opinion, that's what was reliable. And so today, for this latest rendition of the truck, I guess, that's why we did what we did. And it is more of a tribute to my dad, always believing in Chevrolet power, working for General Motors for 25 plus years. That was kind of our thing. So that's why we went with the LS.
I didn't get to look. Did you paint that LS blue?
No, I didn't. It's black. So everything out of the engine is black. So I painted the engine to match the inner fenders. We did discuss it, and that's still definitely an option out there. Even putting a Ford motor in it one day is still an option. The motor's still sitting there.
Sure.
So I'll take the heat that I get on it now. Some people, like I said, they'll walk up to the truck and like, oh, it's a nice truck, and they look in the hood and realize it's Chevrolet motor and turn and walk off.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's it is what it is. But
my family
always.
Yeah. But I agree with the LS. I mean, it's a reliable engine, builds good power. It's a good choice.
And like I said, it sounds good, runs good. Like I said, I don't have any hesitation to go out there if it's 0 degrees and firing it up, or if it's 110, fired it up, get it and drive it.
Right.
And we built it to get out and drive. That's why we built that truck. I wanted to look good. But I wanted to also be able to take people for a ride in it. My wife loves it. I have 2 little girls. I can't go out to the garage and fire it up just to turn the motor over, and they don't run outside, won't know where we're going. So to me,
that's great.
That's memories in itself for me. Hopefully it'll be memories for them as well. My dad, luckily, he got to come home and move back home and ride in it. He's still with me today.
Nice.
And I'll say, hey, Dad, there's a car show this weekend on our cruise in. And before I can say there's a cruise in, he's asking what time we're leaving.
Wow.
He's showing up, ready to go for a ride. To me, that is the coolest thing about the truck. The memories that it makes for everybody. Definitely not
Right.
for me, but my dad getting to enjoy it again.
Yeah.
My little girls, my wife. I never thought two little girls, would have the passion for automobiles and old cars and trucks that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different nowadays than it was when I grew up. But to see my little girls and other little kids at cruise-ins and car shows really being respectful to other people's cars, asking their parents or whoever they're with, their grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever, asking questions about those cars and having that interest of automobiles, to me, is really cool. I think, we've lost a lot of that over the years. A lot of times people just want the latest, greatest, and newest, most reliable things that are out there to get in and drive, but you really miss out on a lot of the traditional history and artwork of automobiles by doing that. So it's really cool to see a lot of younger people getting involved.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool that your girls are developing memories with the same vehicle that you developed memories with as a kid too. I mean, that's not a story you hear a lot of.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
No, it is. That really is a cool part for me. I came across a picture of the truck here a while back. It was me when I was probably 3 or 4, and my dad had sat me up on the hood while he was working on it or something. So I was sitting there, and then this was last year. We were at a car show, and my youngest, Sadie, she had actually climbed in. She had climbed in the front seat of the truck, and a photographer actually took her picture. So she's sitting there in the pretending to drive the truck, and the first thing I thought of was, man, that was me. And
Right.
That's the coolest part of me.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she will remember that big time. And we talk about in the in the What Drives You segment, we talk about what's that left turn, what's that spark, what happened when you're cruising along and you're a young kid, and then all of a sudden you say, I can't think about anything except for this truck. That is your awesome turning point, and hopefully that's going to be for her. And kudos to you for passing on the ability and the want and the need to create memories.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody's got that one car that was the hook for them. That when they was younger, this is the first car I remember that I seen, and I thought, oh wow, this is cool. I want something like this in the future, or I want this car or whatever. Then it's cool that you grew up with this truck, and now your girls are growing up with it. The same hook. So
yeah, I know. I showed some pictures of my 33 Plymouth to Dustin, and we kind of traded pictures and things back on Instagram DM. And he was showing me some pictures of him as a child with his vehicle, and I was showing vice versa, showing him some pictures of me with my Plymouth. And my family's owned that car since the very early 70s, and I remember riding in it. I remember it being in the garage all the time. I remember the time that, life and wife and family and everything, jobs got in front of the car, and I remember it being parked. I remember being in trouble for getting the car out because I thought, oh man, I'm a mechanic now. I'm going to get this car out, and I'm going to work on this car. And
Right.
I didn't realize that the toll I had to pay for getting the car out and going, surprise, Dad, I cleaned this car all up, was him beating my ass.
Yep.
I didn't realize that, and my father telling me, I don't care what you do with this car, it's still mine. And that stuck with me for a really long time. And as we went forward, I think he saw things in cars that I was customizing, and he didn't want me to, cut this thing up and chop the top and do all sorts of stuff to it and quote unquote ruin it.
right.
And he saved the car, and now he's given it to me, and together Shawn and I are going to get the thing running again. It will be a huge emotional experience for me to drive that car under its own power and run it around and remember myself as the tiny kid in the back seat, standing up, holding on to the back seat, and my dad's driving. My father tells the story all the time. We were driving in that Plymouth, and my idiot ass, I went and grabbed the door handle and opened up the rear door, and the door blew it open. It's got suicide doors in the thing. I almost fell out. My dad's holding on. He grabbed me from the back seat, and I was super young. And those are things that you just can't make up. It's emotions and the fact that this vehicle is just sheet metal, rubber, and glass. It is a stupid thing, but it means so much to you, and you get that with your truck, Dustin. And I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
So you've built some other trucks with your brothers?
Yeah, we have actually. My oldest brother, and he still has it today, is an '85 C10. My dad bought that one brand new back in '85. He held on to it when my brother turned, 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
We started working on that one. My dad had bought it and used it like he used the red truck. He used it for construction and his daily driver. He parked it for a while, so my oldest brother turned 14. We started building it. We took it all the way down. Took the 305 in it, took it out, and built the 350 ourselves and put it in there. And we drove it, or he drove it, for years. And kind of the same story as me. He ended up parking it. Life got busy, and then this was probably 10 years ago. Kind of the same thing. He decided it's time to build that one, and we started on it. We took it all the way down the frame again. We did all the chassis work on it. He ended up finding the ZZ502 big block Sherrill we put in it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, got Brad Stavern do the metal work on that one for us. Sprayed paint to it, and we put it back together, and he still owns it. My middle brother, he had always wanted a step side, and so my dad and mom found him an '81 Chevrolet step side. It was an old farm truck. He had lived on the farm his entire life, I think, here locally. So it was pretty much gone. It was beat up. Step side, of course, had a bed in it, but therefore it had no bed in it. All the wood was rotted out. I don't think there's a straight panel on that truck that we could just spray paint on and put back on. So we worked on that one ourselves. We had a couple of my uncles. They helped us build that one. Got it put back together. Put a 350 crate motor in it, and he drove it all through school. So that one was, there's so many memories with both of those trucks outside of the red truck that I still think about today, and what we did with those cars and trucks. The couple times on the 85, the build we did on the 81, those memories will last forever. After that, my middle brother bought an '86 Chevrolet 4-wheel drive. So of course, being a 4-wheel drive, we had to see how big a tire we could put on that thing and how high we could get it, and do it the true 4-wheel drive Chevrolet pickup truck style. Just put the biggest motor we could find, biggest wheels and tires we could find, and play around in it, have a good time in that truck. We did. A couple other cars that we have working on now. It's a '37 Ford. That one, it had the original flathead V8 in it, and it still ran. But of course, we couldn't leave well enough alone. We got to 1,000 pieces already. It'll eventually get back to the road. Just recently, my oldest brother recently purchased his oldest daughter a '67 Camaro. She'll be 16 this year. So I went up. We're in Georgia, but we went up to South Carolina, picked that car up for her, and started doing some work on it. There's a '67 RS Camaro 327 4-speed, and it's a good looking car. Awesome. But I was, with her being 16, want to do some disc brakes on it, make it a little bit safer for her, easier to drive, power steering.
Yep.
So that's where we're at with it. And And the cool thing about that is her being 15 now, him and I be under the hood of this thing, tinkering and doing some stuff up under it, replacing the parts. She'll be right there with us. 14, 15-year-old girl out there just turning wrenches and learning and actually listening, not having a cell phone in her hand. You'd explain something to her or tell her how to do something. She could pick up the wrench or the ratchet and go to town on it. To me, that's really, really cool.
Yep.
In my opinion, you go out to restaurants, or you still go out to restaurants, and see teenagers just on their cell phone, walking down the street on their cell phone. But to see her put the cell phone away and just go full speed, both hands in that thing, tearing it apart. That's memories that I think she will carry on as well, driving that car. That's memories I'll carry on forever as well. And I'm looking forward to my daughters being that age, and hopefully they'll still have the passion that I had and have, and we can do something like that with them as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. You're passing the torch, and that's really incredible. That's great.
Yeah, that's something that we really need to concentrate on is like John said, passing that torch on to the younger generation, because at some point, we're not going to be around, and there's going to be a need for caretakers and for people to be interested in these cars that we love so much.
Right.
And otherwise, it's just the hobby. It's just going to die, and we just can't let that happen. We need to pass it on to other people.
Absolutely.
So you are a member, and actually, you are the president of the American Street Rodders Car Club.
I am. I had joined American Street Rodders. It had started years ago, and I had joined them just past couple of years. Once the truck was done, I was at a local car show, and I had a guy come up. And actually, it's a guy that I've known for years, just being from the same town. He came up and said, "Hey, man, you should join our car club." And, growing up and always been around cars and going to car shows, you see all these car clubs, and it just wasn't my thing. I never wanted to be a part of a club. I enjoy talking to everybody, so I didn't want to just single myself out to a particular club. But I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then the next show came up, and he had asked me again, "Hey, man, come on and join." And I said, "Well, tell me, what is it about your car club? What is it? Why do you have a car club?" And he said, "Well, all of our proceeds supports local charities. Mainly, we take care of the utility bill or the electric bill for a local homeless vet shelter." I'm like, wait, that's not what I had thought a car club was. I thought a car club was just a bunch of, people that sat there in a car club and paid car club money and had big parties and big cruises and all that. I didn't really understand some car clubs actually have a purpose. Right. And when he told me the purpose of that, I thought, you know what? Yeah, I'll pay the dues. I'll pay my membership fee once a year and, let it go to what it goes to. So as I joined and got more involved, I got to meet a lot of really good people. People in this local area come from all walks of life. It's people that have known me since I was, knee high, and I didn't know them, but they had known my parents and they knew me through them. And, as I got to meet more of them, I got to understand the connection I had with them and what they had with our hometown. Got to learn a lot from them, got to see no matter where those people came from or what they did for a living, they always had one common goal. And the goal is not the cars themselves. Sure, we're all passionate about our cars and other people's cars, but the main reason they're a club is to support local charities and mainly the homeless veterans. And you get to interact with people, and you get to talk to people and hear their story on growing up and even what drives them. And you'll meet people that, have a huge collection of really, really nice automobiles, and they'll talk to you just like you're their best friend.
Mm-hmm.
meet people that, you know, put everything they have into a car or truck, and they've had it for years, and that's something they've always wanted. You know, kind of like their last wish is to have the automobile, and they have it now. They put
Right.
everything they had into it, and they'll talk to you as well, just like you've known them forever, and they're your friend. So get to experience that and to meet those people, but to know the common goal of that car club and this car club is it's really, really neat to me. That's something I never, like I said, I never thought that was the purpose of a car club. But luckily for me, I found a great car club that does really, really good for the main cause. And you know, I think it was last year, the president at the time was one of the founding members, and he had gotten up in age and decided, you know, it's time for me to take a step back. I want to take more time and spend where I want to spend more time. Because I also come to cruise-ins and your car shows and support you, the car club, but it's time for me to take a step back. And another member, a couple other members was like, hey, why don't you run for president? I'm like, I'm not sure how well that'll be accepted. You know, I would say the average age for the car club I'm in is up there, probably 60 plus. And I was like, I don't know how well one of those young guys would be accepted. I said, don't get me wrong, I would love to do it because it's a great cause and they have a really good thing going. I said, I would love to do it. But I have a concern of doing it because of my age, and I don't want them to think a young person's coming in and taking over. And
Right.
That's not at all what the goal was. They talked to me and I said, why don't you just run, see what happens? And I did. And luckily, I won. I became the president of the car club.
Wow.
That was a huge honor for me on various reasons. To have those people accept me for who I am and what I have and what I do, and to allow me to be the president and kind of take the reins and lead a car club and to continue on what they have started was really an honor for me. You know, we're trying to get more members and get, you know, I don't say younger members, but we really need some younger members to help carry this thing forward. Just as you were saying,
that's
earlier.
That's a big part of it. That's a huge part of it.
It is.
Yeah,
we don't want to build automobiles and cars and trucks and everything, and then all of a sudden, once we're gone or decide, you know, we can't get out and do it anymore, we definitely don't want these automobiles go to waste or go to the wayside. So if we can get younger people involved, and you know, we've been able to get a few new younger members in that have really nice cars. You know, they may not have the oldest car, they may not have a 32 Ford sitting in the driveway, but what they have is something they're passionate about. It's something they've spent time and money on, and they've created memories with it. So we've gotten some younger members in there to kind of help the car club continue on. Definitely don't want to lose any members. We want to hold on to everybody and don't want to see anybody go. You know, it's really neat to see this car club carry on and do what it does. So,
do you have a year break or a cutoff of interest in your club?
We don't. We don't. It's called American Street Rider. So, if you want to show up and join, you have a 2010 Camaro SS or ZL1. By all means, you know, if you support what we support, if you are respectful to everybody and respectful for people themselves, their automobiles, if you have a passion for cars, you know, we would love to have members and to carry on. It's not, you know, and we've had discussions with the car club and friends of mine that's in the car club. It's not about the trophies. You know, it's about trophies at cruise in and car shows. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to, it's not T-shirt sales. It's how much money can we donate to the homeless vet shelter? How much money can we donate to local charities that need our help? And we can't help them all. But, you know, when we make a donation to a charity and they send us a thank you letter, and I read that letter at our monthly meeting, you just see the faces on the members think, we really have a purpose. We're actually doing something good. We're using our automobiles for a better cause than just bragging rights or having people come and gawk over stuff. That's not at all what it's about.
Right.
Cool. Dustin, what drives you?
What drives me is just the history of automobiles from day one. From growing up, being a little kid, playing with Hot Wheels, building model cars. I have 2 older brothers, and my dad, they're also gearheads. I guess you could say I followed in their footsteps. They've always been around cars and trucks, built cars and trucks. We spent pretty much all of our extra time, if we weren't hunting or running around the yard, helping my dad in the garage, really doing anything with our hands. My dad was a expert craftsman at woodwork, so we did a lot of woodworking growing up. We still do, and we also built cars growing up. We built obviously the red truck, the '68 F100 for me we started working at 14, and to have it done by the time I was 16. We built an '85 C10 for my oldest brother, built an '81 C10 for my middle brother. So that's really where my passion for automobiles come from, as well as still being able to be involved in the car community here locally. It's just the amount of people you get to meet at car shows and cruise-ins and just hanging out in the driveway and people riding by is really, it's a huge passion of mine to meet people and hear their stories as well. At the car shows, car clubs, what have you, you meet all walks of life with all types of automobiles. It's you never know who you're going to meet. You never know the person's history, but the car or truck that they built or that you see sitting there is really the open door to be able to communicate with people and start asking questions, or have people come up to you and ask questions, and you get to talk to them, and you learn a lot more about them besides what they're driving. And for me, to be able to meet all different types of people and to hear their stories is really important to me. Just the time we got to spend growing up, every time I talk to somebody about how they built their car or built their truck and what they did, it kind of creates flashbacks for me and what I experienced growing up, from the time I was knee-high playing with Hot Wheels and building model cars to laying under the trucks of things my dad had worked on, my older brothers, things they had worked on, and helping them. It's a flood of memories every time I get to experience that.
I am John, Custom Car Nerd in Meyer. You can follow me at Custom Car Nerd on Instagram.
And I'm Shawn, Mr. Sedan Man Sherrill. You can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Sedan Man.
What drives you?